In a shocking twist that's left fans reeling and the reality TV world turned upside down. Love and hip-hop, Atlanta power couple Kirk Frost and Rashida are at the center of a bombshell scandal that no one saw coming. Just days after what appeared to be a peaceful family getaway on social media, chaos erupted behind closed doors, culminating in Kirk Frost's alleged arrest after a late-night altercation with none other than his longtime wife, Rasheeda, the woman who stood by him through countless cheating allegations, secret children, and years of public embarrassment, may now be the victim in what's being described as one of the most disturbing domestic incidents in LHHATL history. According to early reports, police were called to the couple's Atlanta home after neighbors heard screaming, glass breaking, and what one witness called the kind of yelling you'd expect in a horror movie. When officers arrived, they were met with a frantic Rasheeda allegedly in tears, claiming that Kirk had lost control during a heated argument over something that should have been over years ago. That's right, infidelity accusations have resurfaced, and this time, the fallout wasn't just emotional, it turned physical. Sources close to the family claim this isn't the first time things have gotten volatile between the two, but this is the first time police have gotten involved, and with Kirk in handcuffs, it's no longer just TV drama, it's real life. Now, fans are asking, what happened behind those closed doors? Was Rasheeda trying to leave? Did Kirk snap under pressure? Or is there more to this story than anyone is letting on? Emotions are running high across social media as fans try to piece together what really happened. Could this finally be the moment Rasheeda walks away for good? Is this the end of their rocky empire? Or will this be yet another scandal swept under the reality TV rug? Grab your seat, because what you're about to hear next will make you question everything you thought you knew about Kirk and Rasheeda, the betrayal, the secrets, the moment the cameras didn't catch until now. Keep watching, because the truth is messier than you think. It all began on what seemed like an ordinary Tuesday evening, with Rasheeda posting a serene boomerang on her Instagram story, just her, a wine glass, and some soft R&B playing in the background. Fans assumed all was calm in the Frost household. But behind that picture-perfect story was a storm brewing, one that had been quietly escalating for weeks. According to sources close to the couple, tensions had been simmering since Kirk began spending more time away from home, citing business and studio sessions as his excuse. But Rasheeda wasn't convinced. Rumors had already begun to swirl weeks prior, with multiple fan accounts spotting Kirk at an upscale Buckhead lounge, always with the same unidentified woman. At first, Rasheeda brushed it off, perhaps hoping this was just another baseless rumor, another round of gossip that comes with being on reality TV. But then came the texts. A friend of Rasheeda's allegedly forwarded her screenshots from a burner account, showing flirty exchanges between Kirk and a woman saved under the name Bobby Lawn Service. A classic disguise. Too ridiculous to be believable, yet too suspicious to ignore. The texts referenced late-night link-ups, money transfers, and even a hotel keycard photo. That was the breaking point. When Kirk returned home that evening, Rasheeda confronted him not with anger, but with disappointment, the kind that cuts deeper. "So we're doing this again?" she reportedly asked, holding her phone out, screenshots ready. Kirk allegedly tried to gaslight her, brushing it off as fake DMIs, claiming someone was out to ruin them. But Rasheeda had heard it all before. According to someone who was in the house at the time, Rasheeda's cousin, who asked to remain anonymous, the tone shifted fast. The calm, tired confrontation escalated into raised voices, with Rasheeda shouting, "You promised me you'd change, Kirk. You begged me on your knees, remember that?" At that moment, something in Kirk snapped. Witnesses say he stormed into the kitchen, pacing, muttering under his breath. "You think you're perfect? You ain't no saint either," he reportedly yelled. That's when the argument exploded into chaos. What followed next was so loud that neighbors 2 doors down claimed they heard the shouting. It was like World War III. One neighbor told local media. Furniture was pushed. Something heavy crashed, possibly a lampstand, then came the sound no one expected, glass shattering, followed by a scream. Rasheeda, visibly shaken, allegedly tried to lock herself in the bathroom, but Kirk reportedly forced his way in. It was in that moment, according to sources, that Rasheeda dialed 911. "I need help," she allegedly told the dispatcher. "My husband's lost it." When police arrived minutes later, the scene they encountered was haunting. Rasheeda, still in her robe, stood near the staircase with tears running down her face. Kirk was seated on the couch, hands on his head, visibly sweating. The officers separated them immediately, asking questions, assessing the damage. Based on Rashida's account and the visible signs of damage in the home, including broken glass, an overturned coffee table, and a cracked phone, Kirk was placed under arrest on the spot. The arrest wasn't quiet. Paparazzi had already been tipped off, possibly by neighbors or someone in the know. Cameras captured Kirk being escorted out of his home in handcuffs, head down, refusing to answer questions. Rashida stayed behind, refusing to make any public comment. But insiders say her sobs could be heard from the front yard. She kept saying, "I'm done. I'm really done this time," one officer allegedly overheard. It wasn't long before TMZ, The Shade Room, and every major entertainment blog ran with the headline, "Kirk Frost arrested after allegedly assaulting wife Rashida." Fans couldn't believe it. Some supported Rashida, expressing heartbreak that she had endured so much. Others criticized her, asking why she didn't leave him years ago. But what none of them knew, what hadn't yet been revealed, was that this incident was the final straw in a pattern that had been building in silence. Behind closed doors, Rashida had been documenting her emotional unraveling in voice notes, possibly for therapy. In one of them, leaked by a close friend, she can be heard whispering, "I don't know who I am anymore. I look in the mirror and I see a woman who's tired of being loyal to a man who doesn't know how to love her right." Another clip surfaced of Rashida talking to her mother, Shirley, saying, "Ma, I should have left when he had that baby. I thought staying made me strong, but maybe leaving would have been stronger." Shirley, who's always had a rocky relationship with Kirk, reportedly rushed to her daughter's side the moment news of the arrest broke. That night, she stayed at Rashida's house, holding her hand through a sleepless night filled with silence and regret. Meanwhile, social media went into a frenzy. Some fans dug up old clips from LHHATL, showing Kirk's previous infractions, his secret apartment, the DNA test drama, and his defensive attitude whenever Rashida tried to communicate. These moments, once viewed as just part of the show, now seemed like glaring red flags that foreshadowed this moment. "She's been crying out for help on TV for years and we thought it was scripted," one fan tweeted. Another posted, "Rashida is the blueprint for how not to suffer in silence. I hope she finally sees her worth." But while the world processed the drama, Kirk was sitting in a holding cell, reportedly quiet, refusing to speak to anyone, including his lawyer. According to sources, he looked dazed, like he couldn't believe what had just happened. Perhaps it was the realization that this time, there were no cameras to edit out the ugly parts. No producers to control the narrative. Just raw, painful reality. The kind that hits harder than any episode ever could. What's even more jaw-dropping is what Rashida allegedly discovered just before the FIDA discovery that may have set everything in motion. A bank transaction in Kirk's business account showing thousands of dollars being transferred every week to an unfamiliar name. The same name that appeared in those burner phone texts. Was Kirk financially supporting a whole other woman, behind Rashida's back? Was there another secret child? As part 1 closes, what we know is chilling, but what we don't know is even more terrifying, because if this was just the spark, the explosion that follows in part 2 will leave the entire Frost legacy in ruins. Picks up moments after Kirk's arrest, but the real firestorm was only just beginning. As word spread of what happened inside the Frost household that night, Rashida's phone began to blow up, not with sympathy, but with questions, accusations, and even betrayal from those she once considered closest. Her publicist advised her to stay quiet. Her business partner suggested releasing a neutral statement to calm the public. But Rashida, heartbroken and seething, had no energy to manage optics. She wanted the truth out, even if it burned every bridge she had left. That morning, in an unfiltered voice memo that she posted and deleted within minutes, Rashida's voice cracked as she said, "This ain't TV. This is my real life. And I'm tired of protecting people who wouldn't cross the street for me if I was bleeding." The internet exploded. Fans reposted the memo within seconds, hashtags trended, and opinion videos flooded YouTube. But the real shock came when another woman, yes, another, stepped forward, claiming she had been emotionally involved with Kirk for over a year. She didn't release her name but provided screenshots, voice notes, and even an old photo of Kirk shirtless in what appeared to be a hotel room. Rashida, upon hearing this, broke. According to close sources, she locked herself in her closet, her safe space, and sobbed uncontrollably for hours. Her mother, Shirley, was by her side, shouting into the hallway, "You should have never trusted him after the first damn lie." Meanwhile, Kirk was being held without bail. as the state investigated the possibility of domestic violence charges based on physical evidence in the house and Rasheeda's statement. Though she hadn't pressed charges formally, the damage to their reputation, their marriage, and their family empire was already unfolding in slow motion. What hurt Rasheeda the most wasn't just the betrayal, it was the silence from people she once called family. Not one of Kirk's grown children called her. Not one cousin or brother from his side reached out. It was like the entire Frost family had chosen a side and it wasn't hers. Just as she tried to regroup and find clarity, another bombshell dropped. Love and hip-hop producers reached out to Rasheeda, hoping she'd agree to film a special emergency confessional to address what had happened. They offered her a private setting, no pressure, just her words. At first, she said no. But after a sleepless night filled with gut-wrenching memories of all the times she'd publicly defended Kirk even when the world booed her for it, she agreed. The cameras rolled the next morning. Dressed in all black, her eyes red but her voice steady, Rasheeda faced the lens and said, "To every woman who watched me take him back, I want to apologize. I thought I was being loyal. I thought I was building a family, but I was just bleeding in silence. And now, I'm done." That confessional would air days later, and it would go viral, sparking headlines across entertainment media. But behind the scenes, things got messier. That anonymous woman, she wasn't so anonymous anymore. Her identity was leaked by a messy insider. She was a former LHHATL crew member, someone who had been around Rasheeda and Kirk for years. The betrayal cut deep. This wasn't just a fling, it was personal. It was premeditated, and it shattered what little faith Rasheeda had left in the people around her. She smiled in my face, ate at my table, held my child, Rasheeda allegedly told her hairstylist, her voice trembling. And all this time, she was sleeping with my husband. As if the emotional trauma wasn't enough, Rasheeda's businesses started taking a hit. Some fans boycotted her boutique, claiming she enabled Kirk's behavior by staying with him so long. Others accused her of using the drama for publicity, despite her silence. The pressure was mounting from every direction, and Rasheeda began to seriously consider moving out of Atlanta altogether. But before she could make any major life decisions, Kirk's legal team finally made contact. They wanted to meet with her. At first, Rasheeda refused. She didn't want to see him. She didn't want apologies. But then her mother told her, "Closure ain't for him, it's for you." And so, reluctantly, she agreed to meet Kirk at a private facility under supervision. No cameras, no lawyers, just them. When Kirk walked in, Rasheeda barely recognized him. He looked exhausted, deflated. The bravado was gone. For a moment, silence filled the room, until he finally muttered, "I messed up, Sheeda. I messed up bad." But Rasheeda didn't flinch. "You didn't mess up," she replied. "You made a choice." Over and over again. "And now, I'm making mine." He begged her to let him come home. He swore he'd go to therapy, get help, change his ways. But Rasheeda wasn't moved. She had heard it all before. What she didn't expect, however, was Kirk breaking down tears, falling as he said, "I never meant to hurt you. I was just scared of losing everything, and I lost you anyway." For a brief second, Rasheeda's resolve wavered. But then, she thought of the hotel rooms, the texts, the broken glass, and most of all, the silence she had lived in for far too long. "I forgive you," she said quietly. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation, and with that, she walked out of the room, leaving behind not just Kirk but the broken version of herself who once believed loyalty could fix betrayal. But if you think that was the end, think again. Because in part 3, Kirk's past doesn't just catch up to him, it comes crashing down with one final secret that threatens to destroy everything, including Rasheeda's peace. Begins in eerie stillness. Kirk was out on bail, but the silence between him and Rasheeda was louder than any courtroom drama. Their once intertwined lives now stood on opposite ends of a war zone filled with broken trust, leaked messages, and shattered illusions. While Rasheeda focused on reclaiming her peace, Kirk retreated into damage control mode, trying desperately to clean up the mess that had unraveled before the public eye. But just as things seemed to plateau, a final and devastating twist emerged that made everything before it feel like child's play. A DNA test had surfaced. And this wasn't about the old baby mama from seasons past, no, this was new, a child, barely 1 year old, with Kirk's face and, reportedly, his name. The story began leaking slowly, almost like a whisper. A woman from Houston, Texas, had filed for child support, naming Kirk Frost as the father of her infant son. At first, everyone assumed it was just another opportunist chasing clout. But the documents were real. The court filing had Kirk's government name, a paternity test order, and damning proof that he had sent the woman money consistently throughout the pregnancy. When this surfaced online, Rashida reportedly went numb. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. According to a close friend, she simply sat in her home office for hours, staring out the window. "I knew there was more," she whispered to her stylist later that evening. "I just didn't know how much more I could survive." And just like that, the fragile sense of closure she had been building crumbled again. Shirley, her mother, was livid. "This man is addicted to betrayal," she reportedly snapped during a private family meeting. "At this point, it ain't about fixing anything. It's about saving you." Rashida's sons were confused, especially Kai, who had grown up watching his parents struggle, reconcile, fall apart, and fake perfection again. "Are you okay, Ma?" he reportedly asked one night. That simple question shattered her defenses. "I will be," she told him, holding back tears. "Because now, I finally know what I have to do." The internet couldn't get enough. Every blog, podcast, and YouTube gossip channel dissected the timeline of Kirk's alleged secret child. Who was the mother? When did the affair start? How many lies had been stacked on top of one another before the whole house of cards fell? One viral post from a former Ladle cast member read, "Kirk been Wilden for years, but this is evil." Rashida deserves a standing ovation for not losing her mind. But Kirk wasn't done trying to explain himself. Days after the story broke, he called a family meeting inviting Rashida, her mother, their kids, and a few trusted mutual friends. Against everyone's advice, Rashida agreed to go. Maybe for closure. Maybe for her kids. Maybe just to see what lie he'd try next. When she walked into the rented Airbnb where the meeting was held, Kirk stood up like he was about to deliver a sermon. He looked tired, older, and strangely vulnerable. "I messed up," he began, once again. "But I need y'all to understand. This wasn't some affair I was proud of. It was a mistake I didn't know how to stop." Rashida raised an eyebrow. "Mistake? You mean your son?" Silence swallowed the room. Kirk looked down. "Yes, I took the test. He's mine." The room exploded. Shirley stood up, shouting. One of Rashida's cousins slammed her glass on the table. Even Kai stood up, pacing in disbelief. "You mean to tell me you got another baby? And you were just gonna keep that a secret until he showed up at the front door?" Kirk tried to speak, but his voice was drowned in anger. Rashida, surprisingly, didn't shout. She sat still, her face unreadable. "You've disrespected me in every way possible," she said, coldly, "and you've done it with no shame." What followed was a final, painful discussion where everyone laid it all on the table. Rashida's years of silent suffering, Kirk's cycles of cheating and excuses, the emotional toll it had taken on their kids, and the way their marriage had become more of a brand than a bond. "We've been lying to the public and to ourselves," Rashida said, "pretending we're this power couple when we're just two broken people hiding behind filters and captions." After the meeting, Rashida quietly packed her essentials and left the family home, moving into a rental loft downtown. No announcement. No press. Just distance. She began seeing a therapist and started journaling. Some say she's even working on a memoir. Meanwhile, Kirk went radio silent. No interviews. No tweets. Just a hollow Instagram post showing an old photo of the two of them with the caption, "Regret is a prison." The fans, however, weren't letting it go. They flooded Rashida's boutique with orders, sending her support in the only way they knew how. Celebrities chimed in to Taraji Panjang, Henson, Tamar Braxton. Even Cardi B reposted the story with messages of strength. But the real healing didn't come from applause or comments. It came the night Rashida sat with her youngest son, watching a Disney movie, realizing she had really laughed for the first time in weeks. "We're gonna be okay, right, Mom?" he asked her. She nodded. "We already are." But just when things finally seemed to be settling, a new rumor stirred in the shadows. Whispers of an NDA, whispers that Kirk had paid off to other women in the past to stay quiet. Rashida hadn't heard about this yet, but when I think she thought she buried may rise back to the surface in part 4. Because if you thought the truth had already come out too, haven't seen anything yet. Begins with Rashida cautiously stepping into her new chapter alone, but grounded. The weight of years spent protecting a man who repeatedly shattered her trust had finally lifted. She was rebuilding, slowly. The downtown loft, minimalist and serene, became her sanctuary. She started her mornings with silence, a cup of green tea, and affirmations whispered through trembling lips. But just as her heart began to unclench, as her soul started to breathe again, a single text message shattered the stillness. "You need to see this before the blogs do." It was from a former assistant on the Love and Hip Hop production team, someone Rashida had always trusted. Attached to that message were screenshots of 2 NDAs non-disclosure agreements, both bearing Kirk Frost's signature. And both linked 2 women whose names Rashida had never heard before. The language was chilling. Payments, silence agreements, allegations of romantic involvement that never made it to the surface. One of them, dated nearly 3 years back, included a $30,000 payout and a confidentiality clause so airtight it bordered on threatening. The other was more recent, less than a year old, and included a clause about termination of contact. Rashida's hands shook as she read through the legalese, realizing that these weren't just affairs, they were business transactions. He had paid women to disappear, to stay quiet, to erase their presence from his life like chalk from a board. And he'd done it while sleeping beside her, kissing their kids, pretending everything was fine. She didn't scream. She didn't call him. She didn't even cry. She simply sat in that loft, staring into the dim evening light, remembering every time she doubted her own instincts. Every time she forgave. Every time she bent over backwards to justify why she was still there. Kirk hadn't just betrayed her as a husband. He had gaslighted her into silence, into submission, into sacrificing her identity. And for what? A marriage, a brand, a lie. Word of the NDAs began circulating within hours. Someone from the assistant's circle had leaked it to a gossip blogger, and by nightfall, headlines blazed across the internet. Kirk Frost's hidden affairs, NDAs expose pattern of cover-ups. The fans who once questioned Rasheeda's strength now rallied behind her like an army. This woman was gaslit for years. One tweet read, "She deserves freedom, healing, and every damn flower." But Kirk wasn't hiding anymore. In a move no one expected, he posted a video on Instagram, a dimly lit, 2-minute clip. No music, no filters, just him. "To anyone I hurt, especially my wife, I'm sorry," he said, voice hollow. "I can't change what I've done, but I hope she finds peace without me." Comments flooded the video. Some were angry, some were forgiving, but the most liked comment of all was from Rashida herself. 3 words, "We're done here." Behind the scenes, Rashida met with her lawyers. She had never filed for divorce before, not during the baby drama, not during the affair rumors, not even when Kirk moved out years ago. But now, with NDAs and secret children in the mix, there was no more room for tolerance. "You gave him every chance," her lawyer told. "Now give yourself one." Shirley, standing firm by her daughter, helped pack what was left at the Frost home. Rashida didn't take much. Just a few sentimental pieces, some photos, and the journals she had written during her darkest moments. "You wrote through your pain," Shirley whispered, wiping her daughter's tears. "Now write through your power." Amid the chaos, LHHATL producers saw an opportunity. They offered Rashida a solo spin-off, no Kirk, no marriage drama, just her life as a single mom, entrepreneur, and survivor. She declined the offer at first, fearing it would just reopen wounds. But then she thought about the women watching. The ones stuck in silent marriages. The ones gaslit into submission. The ones who needed to see that healing wasn't just possible, it was necessary. She agreed. But on one condition, she would produce it herself. Meanwhile, Kirk began losing endorsements. Several of the businesses he partnered with pulled out quietly. Events he was scheduled to host were canceled without explanation. The empire he had once built on Rashida's back was crumbling. And for the first time in years, he had no one left to blame but himself. The final chapter of this saga unfolded, not with screaming or courtroom theatrics, but with Rashida walking into a charity event she organized herself, dressed in all white, radiant and calm. She addressed the audience. "This isn't about divorce. This isn't about scandal. This is about healing out loud. For every woman who lost herself trying to save a man, this is for you." The crowd erupted in applause, tears, empowerment. It wasn't just closure. It was rebirth. And so, the Frost legacy, as fans knew it, came to an end. Not with a bang, but with Rashida reclaiming her voice. Now that the story's been told in full, one question remains. Did Kirk ever truly love her, or did he love the version of her that would always forgive? And just like that, the curtain closes on one of the most chaotic, heartbreaking, and unforgettable chapters in love and hip-hop history. Kirk Frost, once seen as a flawed but forgivable husband, now stands at the center of a storm of betrayal, manipulation, and secrets so deep they couldn't stay buried. From late-night blowouts and burner phones to NDAs and a secret child, this wasn't just reality TV drama. This was the collapse of a legacy built on broken promises. And through it all, Rashida did what many never thought she would. She walked away. Not for show, not for ratings, but for herself. As fans, we've watched this couple fight, fall, and forgive more times than we can count. But this time was different. This time, Rashida didn't just survive the chaos, she rose from it, stronger, wiser, unapologetically focused on herself. And while Kirk fades into the shadows of his own mistakes, Rashida is stepping into the light, no longer defined by his actions, but by her strength. So now, we turn it over to you. Do you think Kirk ever truly loved Rashida, or was it all control masked as love? Should Rashida return to reality TV to tell her version of the story, unfiltered and raw? And do you believe that once trust is broken this deeply, it can ever be rebuilt? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're reading everything. And if this emotional roller coaster had your jaw on the floor like ours did, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more exclusive updates, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another moment of truth, tea, or total chaos from the wild world of celebrity relationships. Because in this game of love, fame, and betrayal, no secret stays hidden forever.